If you could step into a time machine and drift backward through history, you would not feel the jolt of engines or the rush of wind. You would feel a gradual slowing, like the hush that comes before sleep. The lights of the modern world would fade behind you, and the electric hum, the voices, the endless motion, until only stillness remained. The air would grow cooler, the scent of metal giving way to the deep, steady fragrance of wood and rain. You are moving softly, further and further back, into a time where the night sky is wide and unbroken. You open your eyes and the air feels older. The sound around you has changed. No cars, no glass, no distant roar. Only the faint rhythm of wheels made of wood turning slowly over stone and dirt. Somewhere, a river moves beneath a thin mist. It murmurs with a sound that could belong to any century. The earth is damp beneath your feet. You have arrived in medieval Europe. The light is gentle, stretched thin across rolling hills. The afternoon sun lingers, brushing over the tops of trees and the edges of fields. The world is quiet, but alive, a quiet filled with small things. The rustle of leaves, the soft call of birds returning home, the rhythm of a blacksmith's hammer far away. Each sound seems to settle in the air like dust in sunlight. There is no rush, no urgency, only the deep calm of time moving at its own pace. You begin to walk. The path ahead is narrow and curved, lined with grass and wildflowers. Every few steps you hear the soft crunch of earth beneath your shoes. A breeze passes, cool and steady, carrying with it the faint smell of smoke and grain. To your right, a stream glides through a hollow lined with stones. Its surface reflects the light like rippled glass. You breathe deeply. The air tastes of soil and wood, dense, simple, clean. The present is gone, only the past remains. In the distance, a village rests in a small valley. Roofs of straw and wood rise unevenly, sending wisps of smoke curling into the sky. The colors are muted, brown, grey, the soft green of moss. Yet everything feels complete, held together by quiet purpose. A man leads an ox down the road, the wooden yoke creaking in rhythm with his steps. He glances at you, nods once, and continues. His pace is slow, measured, certain. Here, no one hurries. The day itself moves with patience. You pass a cottage built close to the path. Its walls are of timber and clay, its door hanging slightly askew. In the window, light flickers from a small fire. Inside, you glimpse the curve of a pot, the motion of a hand stirring. The scent of bread and smoke mingles in the air. A child's laughter drifts through the doorway, soft as birdsong. You pause without meaning to, simply listening, and for a moment you feel as though you have always been part of this quiet world. Further along, you find the blacksmith's forge. Beneath a low roof, the fire glows with a deep orange light. Each time the hammer strikes the metal, sparks rise like tiny stars, fading before they touch the ground. The rhythm is slow, almost meditative. The blacksmith works with steady strength, shaping the iron with patience. It is not the harsh sound of labor, but the heartbeat of creation. Constant, grounded, unhurried. You stand still, watching, letting the sound fill the air around you. Beyond the forge lies the center of the village. A well sits at its heart, its stones worn smooth by countless hands. A wooden bucket rests nearby, damp and dark. Someone has left a bundle of herbs to dry on the wall. Thyme, mint, a hint of lavender. Their scent lifts gently in the breeze. Around the square, a few people move quietly from place to place. A woman carries a loaf of bread wrapped in cloth. A man leads a small cart stacked with wood. A dog sleeps near a doorway, tail twitching at some forgotten dream. No one rushes, No one calls. Time flows differently here, softer, wider. You sit by the well for a moment. The water inside is dark and still. When you lean over it, the reflection wavers. Sky, clouds, and a face that feels both yours and not yours. The centuries between you and this place seem to dissolve. For an instant you were simply another traveler, breathing the same air, hearing the same wind. The thought brings a strange calm, a quiet acceptance that everything, even time, eventually comes to rest. You rise and follow the sound of the river. It flows beyond the last houses, through fields marked by low stone walls. The grass bends lightly under the breeze. Sheep graze near the edge, their bells tinkling faintly. The sky is slowly changing, the gold of afternoon softening into the pale blue of early evening. Shadows grow longer, stretching like gentle brushstrokes across the earth. The air cools, but not sharply. It feels like the world preparing for rest. You stop at a small bridge made of uneven stones. The stream runs clear beneath it, glimmering with the reflection of clouds. You rest your hand on the railing, feeling the chill of the stone, the faint pulse of water below. Everything around you is still, yet alive, the kind of stillness that hums softly, as though the earth itself is whispering. Somewhere behind you, a bell tolls once, deep and low. The sound drifts through the fields, lingering in the air long after it fades. As the light begins to dim, you look back toward the village. Thin lines of smoke rise from the rooftops, curling slowly into the dusk. The people are returning home, one by one, closing doors, tending fires, gathering close to warmth. You can almost hear the murmur of quiet conversation, the crackle of kindling, the soft laughter of children before bed. The world is folding inward, preparing for night. You sit near a tree whose roots reach deep into the soil. Its trunk is rough beneath your hand, steady and cool. Above you, the first stars appear, pale and trembling in the blue light. The air is still. You can hear the faint rush of the stream, the sigh of leaves. Everything slows. Your breath, your thoughts, even the beating of your heart. The rhythm of this world has become your own. For a long moment there is nothing to do but listen. The quiet is full, rich with the weight of centuries. You realize that this peace has always existed, hidden beneath the noise of every age. The past is not lost. It simply moves more slowly, waiting to be noticed. You breathe it in, the scent of wood smoke and earth, and feel it settle gently within you. The horizon darkens. The last light of the sun touches the tops of the hills, then fades. The sky turns a deep shade of violet. One by one, windows glow with candlelight, small stars scattered across the village below. The night unfolds carefully like a blanket drawn over the world. And as you sit there, wrapped in silence, you feel yourself drift, not away but deeper, into the calm rhythm of time itself. When the wind passes once more through the grass, it carries a soft promise, a whisper of what comes next. The road ahead curves beyond the hill, unseen for now, waiting for morning light to return. For tonight, there is only quiet, only peace, only the slow breathing of a world that has been waiting for you to listen. And when the sun rises again, gently over the fields and rooftops we will continue and see how they lived and how they dreamed. Daily life and living environment. Morning arrives slowly, like a breath drawn by the earth itself. The first light drifts through a thin mist, touching the fields with a pale shimmer. The village awakens not with noise, but with small, steady sounds. The creak of a wooden door, the faint rustle of straw, the sigh of wind brushing against the rooftops. A rooster calls once, its echo carried through the cool air. Somewhere, a dog stretches beside the fire, blinking at the rising dawn. The houses here are simple, built from what the land offers. Walls of timber and clay patched by hand, lean slightly after years of rain and sun. The roofs are thatched with dried reeds, soft and uneven, yet warm through the long winters. Mud forms the floor, packed firm by countless footsteps. The scent of the earth lingers even inside, mixed with the smell of smoke and bread and old wood. Nothing is wasted, nothing is forgotten. In one small home, the hearth glows faintly, breathing a red light into the shadows. A pot hangs over slow embers, carrying the faint aroma of grain and herbs. A woman moves quietly, stirring, her hands steady from habit rather than thought. Beside her, a child bundles straw into a small mat, eyes still heavy with sleep. The rhythm of their movements feels older than memory, guided by the same pulse that turns the seasons. Outside, the village begins to stir. Men step into the fields, tools resting on their shoulders. Their clothes are thick and coarse, stitched by wives or mothers who learned from their own. The soil is dark and cold beneath the first rays of morning, and when the sun rises fully, it spreads warmth across the furrows, waking seeds that have slept all winter. The rhythm of life here follows the turning of the sun. There is no clock to divide the hours, no rush to catch a train, no hum of machinery to mark the day. The measure of time is the sky itself, pale in morning, gold at noon, deep red when the day ends. Shadows lengthen and shorten, guiding each task without words. People move when the light says so and rest when the dark arrives. Their lives are shaped by the fields, by the rain, by the patient cycles of nature. A cart passes slowly on the dirt path, its wooden wheels leaving shallow tracks. The ox pulling it breathes heavy clouds into the air. A boy walks beside it, humming a tune that no one taught him, a song passed down simply by hearing. Around him, chickens peck near the doorsteps and a cat curls up on a warm patch of stone. The simplicity of it all feels like breathing, constant, unnoticed, essential. As the sun climbs higher, the fields shimmer with movement. Scythes cut through tall grass with long, sweeping motions. The sound is soft but steady. A rhythm of work, of effort without hurry. Sweat glistens on foreheads, hands, darkened by earth, move with care and strength. Every stroke is both work and prayer, an act that ties them to the soil. The wind moves gently through the crops, bending them in waves that seem to answer back. In the distance, a river glimmers like glass. Its water runs slow, carrying bits of leaves and branches from the forest. People come here to wash clothes, to draw water, to cool their hands after long hours. The water is not always clean, but it is life itself. Each drop is precious. They drink carefully, share from the same cup, and offer thanks to the unseen rhythm that provides and takes away. By midday, the air grows warm. The sound of insects rises from the grass, a steady hum that fills the space where words would be. Villagers pause in their work, sitting under trees or near the well. They share silence as easily as bread. The world seems to pause with them, waiting, listening. There is a peace here that does not need reason, a stillness that comes from accepting the slow, unchanging heartbeat of the land. Inside the houses, the air remains cool and dim. A few rays of light slip through small windows, touching the floor in bright shapes. Wooden bowls rest neatly on shelves patched with care. Everything has its place, the small knife, the jar of grain, the worn stool by the fire. The walls hold the warmth of years, the memory of countless nights spent in quiet conversation, laughter, and rest. As afternoon deepens, work resumes. Children gather wood, laughing softly as they chase each other between trees. The older ones learn to mend nets, to weave, to grind grain. No one hurries them. Time moves with them, not against them. The village is small, but each person knows their place within it, like threads in a fabric, strong together, fragile alone. The smell of smoke begins to thicken again as the day drifts toward evening. Shadows stretch across the ground. Birds call from the forest edge, signaling the sun's slow descent. The workers return, shoulders heavy but spirits calm. They wash their hands in cool water, speak in low voices, and watch the sky change colors, gold melting into pink, then into the deep blue of coming night. For a moment, everything holds still. The world seems to breathe in unison. Smoke rises from the chimneys, curling softly in the fading light. The air grows cooler, brushing against skin like the touch of sleep. The first star appears, faint but sure, and somewhere a flute plays a slow, wandering tune. It drifts through the village, over rooftops and across fields, wrapping the world in calm. Inside the houses, small fires glow again. Families gather around them, resting, speaking quietly, eating the simplest of meals. The crackle of wood fills the pauses between words. The light flickers against the walls, against faces lined by years of work and laughter. Children lean against their mothers, eyes half closed, listening to stories that have no beginning or end. Outside, the night deepens, and the sound of wind through the grass becomes a lullaby. The rhythm of daily life here is neither harsh nor easy. It moves in cycles: work, rest, hunger, fullness, silence, song. It has no need for clocks or calendars. The seasons themselves are the only language that matters. Winter brings stillness, spring, the first breath of renewal, summer, the long hum of labor, and autumn, the quiet satisfaction of harvest. Every year repeats, but each time something small changes. A new path in the field, a new face at the fire, a new story whispered before sleep. Life is simple, and yet it is vast. Every sound, every breath belongs to the same slow harmony. The earth gives, and people take only what they need. They live close to the soil, close to the weather, close to the quiet truth that all things are temporary, all things return. And in this closeness there is a kind of peace that the modern world has forgotten. As the firelight fades, the village sinks into calm. The last voices soften, the last footsteps fade. The world narrows to the sound of wind and distant water. It feels as though the night itself is wrapping the earth in gentle arms. Above, the stars look down, cold and clear, eternal witnesses to lives lived in rhythm with the land. And as sleep begins to settle over the village, you breathe with it, slow, deep, steady. The air cools, the world quiets, and the only movement left is the steady drift of dreams. When dawn comes again, will continue just as it has for centuries. But for now, the day is done, the air is still, and the world rests. And to understand them more deeply, we will soon see how they eat and how they rest. Food, drink, and the shared meal. The evening settles like a soft blanket over the village. The fields have fallen silent, the tools are resting by the door, and the faint glow of firelight begins to bloom in the windows. Inside each home, warmth gathers again, the warmth of the hearth, of voices, of quiet preparation. This is the hour of the meal, the gentle heart of the day. A wooden table waits at the center of the room. Its surface is worn smooth by years of touch, of plates set down, of elbows leaning during laughter. There is nothing ornate upon it, only simplicity, arranged with care. A loaf of bread sits near the edge, its crust thick and uneven, dusted with flour. The scent of it fills the room, rich and comforting, carrying the memory of the morning's work when it was baked over slow fire. Beside the bread rests a bowl of vegetable soup. It steams gently, the broth pale and fragrant. Within it float pieces of carrot, turnip, and cabbage, all drawn from the garden behind the house. The flavor is humble but kind, the taste of soil, of effort, of life turned into sustenance. A spoon stirs once, twice, before settling against the rim. The sound is soft, almost musical. A small wedge of cheese lies on a wooden plate, pale gold beneath the light. It was made weeks ago from milk carefully saved and warmed, then pressed into shape and aged in cool air. Its scent is faint, its texture firm, a quiet reward for patience. Near it, a pot of honey glows like amber, catching the flicker of the fire. The sweetness of it is rare, precious, used sparingly, a drop on bread, a swirl in milk, a trace of light for the tongue to remember. At the far end of the table stands a jug carved from clay and darkened by years of use. Inside it is the drink of choice for nearly everyone here. Small beer, light and mild. The water of this time cannot be trusted. It hides sickness that eyes cannot see. But the beer, boiled and brewed with grain, is safe. Its flavor is gentle, a little sour, a little sweet, like the rhythm of the days themselves. Even children drink it not to grow drunk, but to share in the same comfort as their elders. The meal begins not with ceremony, but with quiet gratitude. Hands move slowly, breaking bread, passing bowls, pouring drink. There are no silver forks, no polished knives, only wooden spoons, rough plates, and fingers used with care. Everything is shared, everything passed from one hand to another. The room fills not with talk, but with the soft harmony of small gestures, the clink of a cup, the rustle of cloth, the crackle of the fire. The air smells of smoke and broth, of warmth and life. Shadows dance upon the walls, shifting gently with each movement of the flame. Faces glow in the amber light, eyes half-lidded with calm. Outside, the night deepens, yet here inside, time seems to slow, as though the world itself has leaned closer to listen. The bread is dense and hearty, baked from coarse flour ground by hand. Each bite holds the taste of grain, of the field that gave it, of the sweat that planted and harvested it. The soup soothes simple and warm. The cheese adds salt and quiet strength. A sip of beer follows, cool and faintly bitter, balancing the earthiness of the meal. There is no rush, no excess. The act of eating is steady, mindful, almost sacred, a conversation between the body and the land that nourishes it. Children eat beside their parents, dipping bread into soup, whispering softly to one another. The smallest one leans against a mother's arm, already half asleep. The fire hums, gentle as breath. A dog curls up near the doorway, sighing once before drifting into dreams. The rhythm of the room is slow, perfect, unbroken. When someone laughs, it is quiet, like water moving over stones. When someone speaks, the words come low and thoughtful. The stories are small, how the river swelled after rain, how the neighbor's cow gave birth, how the weather smells of frost. Yet each story holds weight, passed on like a shared loaf. These moments are the fabric of life here, threads of ordinary wonder, woven night after night. As the bowls empty, no one rises right away. They linger, savoring the comfort of fullness, the warmth of the fire, the sound of wind whispering outside the walls. Someone pours a final cup of beer. Someone hums a slow tune. The fire answers with a soft crackle. It feels as if the room itself is breathing, as if the wooden beams and clay walls have grown used to this rhythm of nourishment and rest. Beyond the window, the sky has turned completely dark. The stars are bright and sharp, scattered like grain across the vast black field of heaven. The air outside is cool, but inside the home, the warmth holds steady. The scent of smoke and bread lingers long after the meal has ended. Every object, the bowl, the jug, the spoon, seems to glow faintly, touched by the memory of hands that used them. Soon the cleaning begins. Not with haste, but with patience. A cloth wipes the table, crumbs fall softly to the floor. The bowls are rinsed with a small ladle of water, then left to dry by the hearth. The embers glow a deeper red, whispering softly as they fade. The room grows quieter still. A candle burns near the window, its flame bending with the movement of air. The light flickers on rough walls, painting patterns that seem to sway with the breath of the night. The family moves slowly, folding the last pieces of cloth, settling into the calm that follows the meal. The smallest child has already fallen asleep on the bench, cheek pressed against a sleeve. Someone lifts them gently, carries them toward the bed of straw and wool. The table now stands empty, but not lonely. It has served its purpose, just as it has countless times before. A witness to the simple rhythm of life, to hunger satisfied, to togetherness renewed. The air is still warm with gratitude, though no words were spoken. Outside, the wind sighs through the trees, the river murmurs in the distance, a lullaby of water against stone. Inside, the fire fades to embers, soft and glowing like old memories. Each spark that dies leaves behind a quiet peace, a sense of completion. The night deepens. Breaths slow. The room settles into silence. The last light of the candle bends, flickers, and then stills. For a moment, it seems that even time has closed its eyes. And now, after the meal, as the fire in the hearth begins to fade, the people of the village rest, their bodies warm, their hearts steady, and they prepare, gently and without words, for another day to come. Work and the rhythm of labor. Morning arrives not as a sudden awakening, but as a slow unfolding. The sky blushes softly at the horizon, a pale gold spreading through layers of mist. From every corner of the village, faint sounds begin to rise, at the creak of a wooden door, the low murmur of voices, the first rhythmic clatter of tools. The day of work has begun. The farmers are the first to move. They step into the fields while dew still clings to the grass, their boots pressing gently into the damp earth. The scent of soil rises around them, rich and dark, a familiar presence that welcomes and demands in equal measure. They work not with haste, but with certainty, knowing the rhythm of the seasons as they know the beat of their own hearts. The hoe lifts, falls, lifts again, a motion that belongs not to one man, but to generations before him. The field stretches outward, endless yet intimate, breathing beneath the sky. A horse pulls the plough with patient strength, its breath clouds in the cool air, each exhale a small cloud of silver mist. The reins creak, the harness jingles softly, and the earth turns over in furrows as straight as thought. The sound is steady, hypnotic, a living heartbeat between human and animal, land and hand. Birds follow, hopping along the freshly turned soil, waiting for insects disturbed by the blade. Nothing here moves without purpose. Nothing is wasted. Closer to the village, the blacksmith's forge comes alive. The anvil rings with a rhythm both sharp and soothing. Metal meets metal, again and again, sparks rising like tiny stars before fading into nothing. The air carries the scent of iron and fire, strong but familiar, a perfume of creation. The blacksmith's face glows in the orange light, his hands guided by instinct. Each blow shapes the world, a horseshoe, a nail, a hinge. Small things, yet each one a quiet miracle of endurance. The hammer's echo spreads outward, mingling with the rustle of wind in the fields. In a nearby workshop, the tailor begins her work. She sits by a window where the light falls in soft angles, her fingers moving through fabric with care. The thread gleams faintly as it passes through the needle's eye, then vanishes again into the cloth. Stitch by stitch, shape becomes form, and form becomes purpose. A tunic for a farmer, a shawl for a mother, a blanket for a newborn child. The sound of the needle against the wooden table is barely audible, but it holds the same rhythm as the blacksmith's hammer, the same patience as the farmer's plough. Each craft, though different, speaks the same language of devotion. At the edge of the square, the baker works before dawn. The oven glows like a small sun inside the stone hut. Loaves of bread line the shelves, their crusts golden and warm. The smell is thick and comforting, spreading through the air until it seems to belong to the entire village. The baker moves quietly, dusting flour from his hands, listening to the crackle of fire and the soft sighs of dough rising. The sound of bread baking is a sound you can almost feel, deep and low, like the steady breathing of the earth itself. Farther away in the woods, the hunter walks beneath branches heavy with dew. His steps are nearly silent, his breath measured. The forest hums around him. The whisper of leaves, the murmur of distant water, the faint call of a bird unseen. He moves not in haste, but in harmony, following the patterns he has learned over years. Every sound has meaning, the crack of a twig, the flutter of wings, the rustle of fur through the underbrush. The hunt is not violence here. It is balance. The meeting point between need and respect. Throughout the day, the village hums with this quiet orchestra of work. The mill turns by the river, its wooden wheel groaning softly with the current. The grindstone sings as it crushes grain to flour, a deep and steady sound that blends with the murmuring of water. Horses pass on the road, their hooves striking the stones in even rhythm. The creak of wagons, the hiss of steam from boiling dye, the rhythmic slap of wet cloth against a rock, all combine into one vast, living harmony. The people work not against time, but within it. The sun marks the hours, the body follows. There is fatigue, but not bitterness, effort, but not haste. Each action, repeated through the years, becomes as natural as breathing. Hands know their tools, muscles remember their tasks. The work is never finished, but it is always fulfilling. A circle that begins again with each dawn. In the afternoon, when the light softens, a brief stillness passes through the air. The blacksmith sets down his hammer to wipe his brow. The tailor lifts her head from her stitching, stretching her fingers. Farmers straighten their backs, watching clouds drift slowly across the sky. Even the animals seem to pause, horses lowering their heads, birds gliding without sound. For a moment, the whole village exhales together. Then quietly, the rhythm begins again. The shadows lengthen as evening approaches. The smell of smoke returns to the air. The last horses make their way home, hooves thudding softly against the ground. The forge cools, its fire reduced to a faint glow. The tailor folds her work, The baker closes the oven door. The hunter returns from the forest, his steps calm and sure. Each person carries the quiet satisfaction of having shaped the day with their hands. The soundscape of the village changes. Where there was once the clang of metal, now there is the gentle crackle of fire. Where the fields echoed with voices and tools, now they rest under the first silver of moonlight. The air cools, sweet with the scent of grass and ash. Windows glow one by one, and from inside comes the soft murmur of conversation, the low laughter of tired but contented souls. A wagon rolls slowly down the road, its wheels singing against the stones. A dog barks once, then lies down again. The river continues its endless song, steady and patient. Above it all, the sky deepens into indigo, stars pricking through like pinholes in velvet. It is the same sky that watched over the day's labor, and it will watch over the dreams that follow. In this world, work is not a burden but a rhythm, the pulse that keeps life turning. The people move with the earth, not against it. Their strength is quiet, their persistence deep. They build, mend, harvest, create, not for wealth or pride, but because it is what must be done. And in that constancy, there is peace. As night settles fully, the tools are set aside. The last smoke rises from the chimneys, thin and pale. A final cart passes through the square, its driver humming a tune that fades into the distance. The blacksmith closes his door. The tailor blows out her candle. The village sinks into stillness once more. And after the hours of work are done, they return to the small village that waits for them, to their families and the warmth of the fire, to the quiet comfort of home. Clothing and climate. The seasons in this world move slowly, like tides of air and color. Each one brings its own shape of light, its own rhythm of wind. But it is the long winter that defines them most, a season that tests the patience of the heart and the warmth of the hearth. When the cold comes, it comes with quiet strength. The sky turns pale, the breath of the earth grows still, and every sound seems to fall softer beneath a blanket of frost. It is then that the people turn to their clothing, not as fashion, but as comfort, as protection, as something woven from the patience of hands and the kindness of wool. The fibers of their garments are drawn from the sheep that graze near the village, animals whose coats grow thick against the cold wind. The wool is sheared in spring, washed in cool water, and spun through the summer months by careful fingers. By the time the first frost arrives, the yarn has become thread, the thread has become cloth, and the cloth has been shaped into coats, cloaks, and blankets. Wool is the texture of life here, rough at first, but gentle when worn close. Its warmth is quiet and enduring, like the heat of coals buried deep within ash. When the wind rises across the hills, the people wrap themselves in layers of woolen fabric dyed in muted tones, brown like soil, grey like stone, green like the moss that clings to walls. Bright colours are rare, reserved for celebration, for moments when joy outshines the season's chill. Most days the world is clothed in calm shades, blending softly with the land itself. Men wear long tunics that fall to the knee, fastened at the waist by belts of leather or woven cord. Over them they throw thick cloaks that catch the snow before it melts. Women wrap themselves in layered skirts and shawls, the fabric gathered and folded to hold the warmth close. A scarf of wool or linen covers the head and neck, leaving only the face open to the wind. Hands are protected by mittens stitched from scraps of fur. Feet are wrapped in thick socks and bound within leather shoes, worn smooth by years of use. The leather comes from animals raised with care. Cows, goats, deer caught in the woods. It is tanned in slow, patient processes using bark, smoke, and water. The scent of it lingers in the air, deep and earthy like the forest after rain. The shoes made from it are simple, stitched with strong thread, shaped to the foot. They are not perfect, but they are honest. Each pair carries the story of its maker, of the hands that cut and stitched and bent close to the work by candlelight. When snow falls, the world changes shape. Roofs disappear beneath white silence, paths vanish, leaving only faint traces of footsteps. The sound of life becomes muffled, the ring of a hammer, the bark of a dog, the low murmur of voices indoors. Inside the homes, firelight glows against the cold. Cloaks hang by the hearth, steaming softly as they dry. A woolen cap lies near the fire, still damp from melted snow. The air smells of smoke and wet wool, a scent both humble and comforting. Evenings in winter are long. The wind presses against the shutters, the walls creak with the weight of frost. Families gather close, wrapped in their thickest blankets. They sit near the hearth, watching the flames twist and dance. The light plays upon their clothes, revealing the texture of the fabric, the coarse weave of tunics, the soft fringe of shawls, the faint glimmer of thread in the firelight. In that warmth, the world feels smaller, enclosed, safe. The candle, set on the table, trembles with every breath of air. Its flame leans and straightens again, painting golden ripples on the walls. The wax drips slowly, pooling at its base like melted time. The light flickers across faces half hidden in shadow, across the folds of cloth resting on knees and arms. Outside, the snow keeps falling, soundless and endless. Inside, the only movement is the slow rise and fall of breath. On days when the weather softens, people step out wrapped tight against the cold. The sound of their clothing brushing together mingles with the crunch of snow underfoot. The air is sharp, bright with frost. Breath hangs in clouds, rising and fading with each exhale. Children chase one another, their laughter turning to mist. A woman carries water in a wooden pail, her cloak trailing behind her like a dark wave. A man repairs a fence, his gloves stiff with cold. Every motion is slower, but every motion matters. When rain replaces snow, the rhythm changes again. The world becomes grey and glistening. Droplets bead along the hoods of cloaks, run down sleeves, soak into hems. The scent of wet wool fills the air, heavy, clean, unmistakable. Boots sink slightly into the mud, leaving behind temporary patterns that the next storm will erase. Yet no one complains. The rain is part of life, part of the endless balance between comfort and endurance. There are days when the wind grows fierce, sweeping across the open fields like a tide of invisible water. It pushes through cracks in the walls, stirs the smoke in the chimney, whispers beneath the door. On those nights, people wrap themselves tighter in their blankets. The sound of the storm becomes a lullaby. The steady tap of rain, the low hum of wind, the occasional moan through the chimney flue. The candle flickers wildly for a moment, then steadies as if refusing to give up its small circle of light. The clothes of this world do more than cover, they carry comfort through every hardship. Each piece holds memory, of hands that spun, of hours spent weaving, of love sewn quietly into seams. A mother's shawl may be passed to her daughter, a father's cloak might hang for years by the door before another wears it. Fabric frays, but the warmth remains, woven not only in wool and thread, but in the lives that surround it. When spring finally arrives, the wool is hung outside to air. The scent of grass replaces the smoke, and the sunlight warms the fibers, until they breathe again. The same garments will be worn through the next season, patched and mended, growing softer with time. Nothing here is wasted, not even the worn edges or the faint stains of work and weather. In every fold lies endurance, a quiet testament to those who live in rhythm with the earth's changing breath. And so the seasons turn, each one wrapped in its own texture of sound and scent, the whisper of rain against wool, the sigh of wind through cloaks, the steady hum of fire within stone walls. The people adapt, not through resistance but through care, a care that begins with simple things like a stitch in a sleeve or a flame tended through the night. Outside, the rain falls softly again. Inside, the candle burns low, its light trembling but unbroken. The room is warm, the air still, the world at rest. And in those days, people did more than work. They learned to care for one another, to tend to the sick and weary, to keep each other safe through the long and quiet winters. Illness and the ways of healing. There are moments when even the rhythm of daily life must slow, when the fields fall silent and the hands that work the earth are forced to rest. Illness, like the changing of the seasons, comes quietly, uninvited, and stays as long as it wishes. In this old world, there are no bright hospitals or humming machines, only the wisdom of nature passed down through memory and touch. When someone falls ill, the house changes its sound. Voices lower, footsteps soften, the air grows heavy with the scent of herbs, of smoke, of slow-burning hope. The sickbed is often nothing more than a straw mattress pulled closer to the fire. A thin blanket lies across the chest, rough but warm. A bowl of water rests nearby, beside a cup carved from wood, beside a bundle of dried leaves tied with twine. People in these times believe that nature holds the answers if one knows where to look and how to listen. A leaf can soothe fever, a root can ease pain, a flower can calm a restless heart. The village healer, sometimes an elder, sometimes a woman, known for her quiet patience, walks from house to house, carrying a small pouch filled with plants. Her steps are slow but sure, her face lined not only by age, but by the knowledge of countless nights spent beside the sick. In her hands, the herbs become a kind of language, dried lavender for sleep, thyme for the breath, sage for the blood, and honey to heal the throat. She crushes them between her fingers, mixes them with warm water, or steeps them in clay pots set near the fire. The scent fills the room, earthy, green, and strangely comforting. Each breath carries a whisper of the world outside, a reminder that life still moves in the fields and forests even when the body must pause. Sometimes illness is seen as a balance lost. The humours within the body, they say, have turned against one another. Blood, phlegm, and bile must be set right again. A cut on the arm might release the bad air, or so they believe. The healer dips a cloth in wine, wipes the skin clean, and murmurs something quiet, not as a prayer, but as reassurance. There is no fear in her work, only calm. Her movements are deliberate, her silence as soothing as any medicine. Others turn to simpler remedies: rest, warmth, and patience. They believe that the body, like the earth, heals in its own time. A window is opened just enough for air to flow. A damp cloth is placed on the brow. Soup simmers slowly on the hearth, filled with roots and herbs gathered before winter. Someone sits nearby, keeping watch, refilling the cup of water, whispering a few words now and then, not to fill the silence, but to remind the sick that they are not alone. Outside, the world continues. The wind moves through the trees. The rain patters softly on the roof. Nature does not pause for pain. It simply carries it, folds it gently into the endless rhythm of life and decay. Perhaps that is why people of this time find comfort in it. To them, illness is not an enemy, but a reminder of belonging, that they too are part of the fragile balance between body and earth, health and rest, breath and stillness. Children watch their elders with quiet eyes, learning which leaves to pick, which teas to brew. They listen to stories of plants that grow only on the north side of hills, of roots that must be dug before dawn. They learn that medicine is not always bitter, and that sometimes healing comes not from what one takes, but from what one endures. When fevers rise, the body trembles as though caught in an invisible storm. Sweat beads on the forehead, breath quickens, and time itself seems to dissolve. The room becomes smaller, dimmer, defined only by the light of the fire and the rhythm of breathing. Those who watch keep still. They know that the fever must break on its own, that all they can do is tend the flame and wait. Waiting is the truest form of care, they know. Some illnesses pass quickly, like clouds. Others linger, stretching across weeks. In those long days, people speak softly of strength, but what they mean is love, the quiet kind that does not need words. A wife dips a cloth into cool water. A husband holds a trembling hand. A mother hums a tune remembered from her own childhood. The world outside may be cold and vast, but in that small room there is warmth that belongs entirely to them. The healer returns often, her satchel lighter each time. She leaves instructions whispered in the doorway. Let them rest. Keep the air moving. Warm the broth. Speak kindly, and then she steps back into the fog or rain, disappearing into the soft grey of the village streets. Her knowledge is not written down, yet it lives. In memory, in habit, in the way people touch and care for one another. There are times when even the herbs fail, when breath grows shallow and the light in the eyes fades like the last ember in the hearth. In those moments, no one speaks of cures. They simply stay. The healer sits by the bed, a candle burns low. Outside, the wind moves gently through the thatch, a sound like a sigh that belongs to the world itself. No one prays for miracles, they only hope for peace, for comfort, for stillness. To live in such times is to understand the limits of strength. People know the body as something fragile, a vessel easily broken, yet endlessly brave. They have seen the young fall ill and recover, the old grow weaker with the seasons, and still they continue tending to each other with patience. Illness teaches them humility, and with it, a strange kind of beauty. The beauty of care, of waiting, of quiet endurance. And when recovery comes, it feels like spring after the longest winter. The color returns to the face, the eyes open wider, and the first steps are taken with reverent joy. The fire burns a little brighter, the soup tastes a little sweeter. Gratitude lingers in the air like the scent of herbs. Subtle, lasting. Life, fragile as it is, continues, carried forward by the steady hands of those who never stopped believing in the healing power of time. Night falls again. The wind sighs outside, brushing against the window shutters. Inside, the candle burns low, its flame bending to the rhythm of the draft. The room is still. Someone hums softly, the tune simple and old. The sick are resting, their breath steady now, their faces calm. And sometimes there is nothing more to do, no cure, no potion, no promise. Only to sit beside one another, to wait, to listen. And sometimes they simply sit together, waiting for the sickness to pass, while the wind whispers gently beyond the eaves. The town's castles and laws. The road that leads to the town is old, worn smooth by centuries of footsteps, hooves and wheels. It curves gently between fields past low hills and into a valley where stone walls rise like the edge of another world. From a distance, the town looks as though it has grown straight from the earth itself. Grey stones blending with the rock beneath, roofs of dark tile sloping into the mist. As you draw closer, the faint hum of life begins to take shape, the sound of voices, of bells, of the soft clatter of wooden carts against cobblestone streets. The air carries many scents: bread baking somewhere unseen, iron cooling in the forge, hay damp from the morning dew. The town gates stand wide during daylight, guarded by 2 sentinels in chainmail that glints beneath the muted sun. They watch without suspicion, their eyes steady but calm. The gates themselves are tall, made of oak and iron, worn smooth where countless hands have pushed them open. Passing through feels like crossing from one rhythm of life to another, from the quiet pulse of the countryside to the slow, breathing heart of human gathering. Inside, the streets are narrow and uneven, paved with stones that gleam faintly when wet. Houses stand shoulder to shoulder, leaning in as though whispering secrets. Their upper floors jut outward, casting gentle shadows over the lanes below. Wooden beams frame plaster walls, some painted in soft shades of red or cream, though time and weather have faded them to something gentler. From open windows drift the sounds of ordinary life. The murmur of a woman's song, the bark of a dog, the echo of a pot being set down on a table. The market square lies at the town's centre, a place where all paths eventually lead. Stalls line the edges covered with cloths of faded colour. Merchants call out softly, their voices rising and falling like waves. There are baskets of apples, wheels of cheese, bolts of wool, pots of honey thick as amber. The air hums with barter and laughter, but never rush. Every exchange feels like part of a larger rhythm, patient and enduring. Children dart through the crowd with wooden toys, their laughter bright against the steady drone of conversation. A dog chases after them, tail wagging like a flag of joy. Near the well, a group of travellers rests. Their boots are caked with dust, their cloaks damp from rain. They drink slowly, watching the townsfolk with quiet curiosity. One of them tunes a lute, plucking a few notes that shimmer in the air like droplets of light. People pause for a moment to listen. Music, even here, even in the simplest square, has a way of softening the edges of the day. Beyond the market, the streets wind upward toward the castle. Its walls rise above the rooftops built of thick, grey stone that catches the sun in dull glimmers. The castle is not grand in the way of fairy tales. It is sturdy, functional, meant to endure. Its towers overlook the town not as a threat, but as a reminder that order exists, that someone watches over the world from above. Flags flutter in the wind, their colours muted but proud. Inside those walls live the lord and his family, the small circle of nobles who advise, decide, and keep the fragile balance of law. The laws themselves are simple, shaped more by habit than decree. There are taxes to be paid, lands to be tended, disputes to be settled before the town's steward. The people follow these rules not out of fear, but out of understanding, that without them, the fragile thread of peace might fray. The steward sits each week in a hall near the castle gates, listening to the voices of farmers, merchants, and craftsmen. His tone is measured, his words slow. Justice here is not a matter of power, but of patience. The king, far away in his capital, is more name than presence. Yet his seal marks the scrolls that define what may be done and what may not. His face is known only from coins. A profile pressed into metal, worn smooth by years of passing from hand to hand. Still people speak of him with quiet respect. They imagine him seated upon his throne, surrounded by banners, his voice echoing through stone halls. But here, in the town, it is the local lord who governs, the steward who listens, and the people who live each day according to the gentle rules that time itself has written. Knights sometimes ride through the streets, their armor gleaming faintly even in shadow. Children stare in wonder at the sight, though most of the knights look weary, more human than legend. They nod to the townsfolk who bow politely in return. These are protectors, yes, but also travelers, carrying messages between distant realms, keeping the fragile peace of kingdoms that stretch far beyond the horizon. At the edge of the square stands the guild hall. Within its thick walls, the craftsmen of the town gather. Blacksmiths, tailors, carpenters, bakers. They discuss their work, share advice, settle disputes. Each trade has its mark carved above the doorway, a symbol of pride and identity. It is here that apprentices learn, masters teach, and the cycle of skill continues as steadily as the turning of the seasons. The town is never truly silent, yet its noise is gentle, woven with the hum of life rather than chaos. The clatter of hooves on stone echoes faintly through narrow alleys. Bells from the church tower chime the hours, their tones soft and slow, spreading over rooftops like ripples in water. Smoke rises from chimneys in twisting columns, fading into the low clouds that hang above. Everything feels both alive and ancient. A world built not in haste, but in layers of time. When night comes, the lamps are lit along the main street. Their flames flicker inside glass lanterns, glowing like small stars brought down to earth. Shadows dance across the cobblestones as people return home, their footsteps steady and unhurried. From open windows drift faint melodies, a fiddle played by someone unseen, a voice humming a tune older than memory. The smell of stew and fresh bread mingles with the scent of rain beginning to fall. Beyond the town, the castle stands dark against the sky, its towers crowned with faint firelight. Inside, guards walk their rounds, their boots tapping softly on the stone floors. In one high chamber, the lord sits by the hearth, reading by candlelight. His cloak is heavy, his hands steady. He listens to the wind outside, the murmur of distant rain, the faint sound of the town settling into rest. For all his power, he too is bound by the same rhythms as everyone else. The rise of day, the fall of night, the steady turning of the world. As the rain grows stronger, the streets glisten under the flickering lamps. Water pools between the stones, reflecting small worlds of gold and shadow. The last cart rumbles through the gate before it is closed for the night. The guards lean on their spears, watching the horizon fade. Inside the walls, the town breathes a collective sigh, the kind that belongs only to places that know they are safe for now. And so it continues, ushered the balance between rule and freedom, between duty and rest. Each person plays their part, whether noble or common, soldier or craftsman, merchant or child. The laws are the threads that hold them together, woven through the quiet fabric of daily life. They are not chains, but patterns, guiding without binding. Even here, within walls of stone and under banners of order, there is gentleness, for the heart of the town is not the castle or the market or the square, but the people themselves, those who rise each morning to open their shutters, to bake their bread, to greet their neighbors. Life flows through them like a calm river, constant and full. And within every city, behind every gate, beyond every tower and law, there are always the same small wonders. the sound of a lute, the laughter that echoes through narrow streets, the flicker of firelight on rain-wet stone. For in each of these towns, amid their walls and rules, there remain the sounds of music, the songs of old, and the simple joys that make every night feel warm again. Music, games, and festivals. When the fields have yielded their harvest and the work is done, when the tools are laid down and the air carries the scent of ripe grain and wood smoke, the people turn once more to music. It begins softly, almost by accident, a quiet strum on a lute, a faint hum carried by the wind. Then, as if the whole village were breathing together, sound gathers in the open square, laughter, rhythm, and the soft pulse of joy that rises from the earth itself. In this world, music is not performance, it is life remembering itself. The lute sings in warm, deep tones, its strings vibrating like heartbeats. A drum made from stretched hide keeps time, its rhythm steady and low, echoing through the ground beneath bare feet. Pipes carved from wood and reed add a high, wandering voice, weaving between the drum's slow heartbeat. Together, they fill the air with something that feels older than memory, a music that belongs to everyone and no one. Children gather first, drawn by curiosity. They clap their hands, shy at first, then louder as others join. A woman begins to hum, her voice rising above the crowd like smoke. Soon others follow, the melody circling in simple, graceful loops. It is not a song of triumph or sorrow, but of belonging, the sound of many lives meeting in one breath. The sky above is pale gold, deepening toward the calm blue of evening. As dusk falls, torches are lit. Their flames flicker in the wind, painting long shadows across the square. The scent of roasted grain and baked bread drifts from nearby ovens, mingling with the crisp air. Tables are set with wooden plates, mugs of light ale, and baskets of fruit from the summer's end. People eat slowly, laughing softly, talking between sips, the rhythm of their voices matching the steady drumbeat that never quite stops. Someone starts to dance, a farmer's daughter with a scarf in her hand, her steps light and unhurried. Another joins, then another, until a circle forms. The dance is simple, a pattern passed down through generations. Feet tap against the stones, skirts sway and spin, cloaks twist in slow motion, catching the firelight in waves of red and brown. Around them, the villagers clap in time, their faces glowing in the light. There is no stage, no audience, only the shared pulse of motion and sound. The harvest festival lasts long into the night. It is a time when the burdens of labor slip away, and even the oldest among them find reason to smile. Near the fire, a young man plucks the strings of a lyre, his head tilted, eyes half closed. The melody he plays is unhurried, winding like a river. Beside him, an old woman beats a small drum, her hands moving with a rhythm so natural that even silence would sound like music between her beats. The air hums with warmth. Sparks rise from the fire and disappear into the dark like fleeting dreams. The laughter of children mixes with the soft murmur of the crowd. A dog wanders between the dancers, tail wagging lazily as though even it knows the world has become lighter for a while. Someone passes around a jug of cider. The liquid glows amber in the torchlight, its sweetness sharp and kind. The games begin once the moon climbs higher. Simple contests, running, rope pulling, throwing stones toward a circle scratched in the dirt. There are no prizes worth gold, only pride and laughter. The strongest man stumbles and laughs at himself. The smallest child wins by surprise, cheered by voices that echo across the fields. Each game ends in applause, in shared delight, in the simple wonder of being together. Between the contests, musicians rest their instruments on laps, tuning quietly, whispering to one another. A new song begins. Slower this time, deep and low. The crowd stills. Some sway gently, others close their eyes. The melody winds like smoke, soft and endless, until even the night itself seems to listen. The drum fades, replaced by the hush of wind through trees. In that quiet, every heart seems to move in time with the same rhythm. The rhythm of the world at peace with itself. As the evening deepens, the flames grow taller. Faces glow in the amber light, eyes reflecting the dance of fire. Cloaks swirl, feet stamp gently against the earth. 1,000 tiny embers rise into the sky, joining the stars above. It feels as if the boundary between heaven and ground has thinned, as though both worlds breathe in the same steady rhythm. In the corner of the square, a storyteller begins to speak. His voice is slow, calm and rich, shaped by age and memory. He tells of kings and wanderers, of journeys that began on nights just like this one. The children sit close, their eyes wide and bright. The adults smile quietly, their faces lined by the fire's gentle glow. Every word feels familiar, as though it has been told 1,000 times before, and yet it still stirs something deep and timeless. That small spark of wonder that never truly fades. When the story ends, music begins again, this time softer, almost like a lullaby. Couples move together in slow circles, arms around one another, steps small and certain. The rest of the crowd hums along, a chorus of low voices blending into the night air. Beyond the walls of the town, the fields rest in silence. The harvest is done, the earth sleeps, and for this moment, so do the hearts of those who worked it. The fire burns lower, the dancers slow, the children drift into the arms of their parents, their heads resting against wool and linen. The musicians play one final song, a tune so gentle it feels more like breathing than sound. Each note stretches into the next, dissolving like mist. The moon watches from above, its light touching every face, every spark, every motion. When at last the music fades, the square falls into calm. Only the crackle of embers remains. People linger, reluctant to leave. They speak softly, tidying tables, gathering cloaks, saying goodnight. The silence that follows is not emptiness, but fullness. A silence shaped by everything that came before. It feels like the breath the world takes before dreaming. As the torches dim, the scent of smoke lingers in the air, blending with the faint sweetness of apples and grain. The musicians pack away their instruments, their hands moving slowly, reverently. A few last notes escape, small, accidental sounds that hang for a moment before fading into the distance. Somewhere, a laugh drifts through the dark, low and content. The festival does not truly end. Its warmth stays in the heart long after the fire has gone cold. In the morning, the villagers will rise again, sweep the square, gather what remains. The tools will return to the fields, the rhythm of work will resume. But tonight, they have remembered something important, that joy, like song, needs no reason to exist. It is simply there, waiting to be shared, waiting to be heard. The fire has burned down to coals now, their glow soft as sleeping eyes. A few voices linger by the last light, humming quietly to the fading tune. The stars shimmer above, listening. The night is whole. And amid all these festivals, beneath the laughter and the songs, there are always those who carry another rhythm. The quiet march of duty, the call of courage. For in the midst of these celebrations, there were also those who fought for honor. the arena and the spirit of the warrior. The morning begins in silence. The sky, pale and endless, carries the faint scent of dust and dew. The world has not yet woken, and yet somewhere beyond the hills, a low metallic sound drifts through the air. The measured clink of armor, the slow breath of horses, the whisper of practice blades slicing through the air. It is the language of preparation, the still rhythm of those who live by discipline and grace. The knights gather in the training yard just after dawn. Their movements are deliberate, almost meditative. Sunlight slides across their armor, glinting softly on steel polished by long care. Each motion is a conversation between balance and strength, a sword raised, a shield lifted, a step measured to meet the weight of the world. The sound of practice fills the air like distant rain. The dull thud of wood against wood, the ring of blade against blade, the sharp exhale of breath released in focus. There is no battle here, no frenzy of conquest, only the art of control. Each swing is slowed, each parry measured. The knights are students of rhythm, their bodies remembering patterns learned over countless mornings. They do not rush. They know that mastery lies not in speed, but in stillness, in the ability to move through motion without disturbing the peace that lives beneath it. At the far end of the yard stands an old master. His hair is silver, his armor plain, yet when he moves, the air itself seems to follow. He corrects a young squire's stance with a touch of the hand, adjusts a blade's angle with a nod. No words are needed. The understanding passes quietly, like the exchange of a secret. The squire bows, returns to practice, and the rhythm continues. Beyond the castle walls, in open fields, soldiers train beneath the wide sky. Spears rise and fall in unison, catching the morning light like the wings of great birds. The air hums with their breathing, with the steady drum of boots upon packed earth. Each formation moves as one body, each man and woman bound by the invisible thread of discipline. The sound of their training echoes far beyond the fields, blending with the wind, fading into the distance like a song carried on air. In the great towns and distant provinces, arenas stand at the heart of the people's fascination. These are not places of cruelty here, but of ritual, circles of sand where skill is displayed, courage tested, and strength tempered by restraint. The crowd gathers slowly, their voices low and expectant. Sunlight spills over the high stone walls, painting long stripes of gold across the ground. The air is thick with warmth, with anticipation, with the deep hum of shared attention. A single gate opens. From the shadows steps a knight in shining mail. His visor glints as he lifts it, revealing a calm face touched by years of patience. He bows to the crowd, not in pride, but in respect. Across the arena, another figure enters, his partner, his mirror. The two meet in the center, touch their blades together lightly, and step back. The duel begins, slow and deliberate, a dance of movement rather than violence. Steel meets steel with a sound like chimes. Each strike is answered, each motion contained. Dust rises gently beneath their feet. The crowd watches in silence, drawn not by victory, but by the beauty of precision, and the serenity within danger, the art within strength. When the duel ends, both bow once more, and the sound that follows is not the roar of triumph, but the deep, collective sigh of admiration. Among the spectators sits a woman clad in light armor, her hair bound in a simple braid. She is a fighter too, though her path is different. In far lands across the sea, in the echoing stone of Roman arenas, she would be called a gladiatrix, a warrior of grace and defiance. Her presence is quiet, her gaze unwavering. When she stands, the light catches the bronze of her breastplate, turning it to gold. Her steps toward the arena are slow. The crowd parts, murmuring softly. She carries not only a sword, but the weight of every woman who learned to fight, not from pride, but from necessity. The sand crunches under her feet, the air trembles with the sound of distant drums. She raises her weapon, not to challenge, but to honor. Her first movement is smooth, her second precise. The fight that follows is a performance of balance. Each motion deliberate, each pause filled with quiet power. She is not wild nor cruel. Her eyes are calm, her breathing even. When her blade meets her opponent's, the sound rings pure and clean. It is not the sound of anger, but of life, of two forces meeting and parting, testing, learning. The rhythm builds, slows, then fades. When it ends, both bow, heads low in mutual respect. The crowd, for a moment, says nothing. Then a slow wave of applause rolls through the air, soft and reverent, like rain beginning on distant water. Afterward, the arena empties, the sun lowers and long shadows fall across the sand. The knights remove their helmets, the fighters their gloves. The air smells of iron, dust and sweat, but also of peace. The tools of battle are cleaned with care, the armor wiped free of soil, the swords sheathed. The warriors speak quietly among themselves, their voices calm, their laughter light. For them, the fight is not about conquest, but about understanding, a meditation in motion, a discipline of the soul. Beyond the arena walls, the sound of life resumes. Merchants close their stalls, children chase one another through narrow streets. The smell of roasted grain and sweet ale fills the air. From a nearby tavern comes faint music, a lute playing a slow, wandering tune. The same hands that once gripped a sword now cradle a mug or rest upon a friend's shoulder. The day, for all its intensity, ends not in glory, but in quiet satisfaction. As night comes, the training fields empty. Armor hangs upon racks, swords rest upon walls, and torches flicker beside the gates. A few warriors remain, practicing in silence under the moon's pale glow. The clink of steel sounds softer in the cool air. The wind passes through the grass like a sigh. Every movement feels slower, gentler, as though the night itself has joined their rhythm. To live as a warrior here is to live with awareness of strength and weakness, of control and surrender. It is to understand that battle is not only fought with blades, but within the self. To stand firm when fear whispers, to move with grace when the world trembles. The true spirit of the fighter is not the strike, but the stillness between strikes, the moment of silence that turns motion into meaning. When dawn returns, they will rise again, polish their armor, step into the yard. The rhythm will begin anew. Yet tonight the fire burns low, and peace settles upon the walls like a cloak. Somewhere, a lone warrior sharpens his blade, the sound slow and steady, like a lullaby for those who once dreamed of battle and found instead the calm that comes after. The wind carries the faint echo of metal, not harsh, but musical. The stars shimmer above the empty arena, their light touching the stone with silver. The world, for now, is at rest. And from this battlefield of quiet valor, from the echoes of armor and the grace of those who fight without hatred, the journey drifts onward, beyond the walls, beyond the west, toward lands of sand and endless sun. From that field of warriors we now take our steps toward ancient Egypt, far and golden beyond the horizon. Egypt and Cleopatra. The Nile moves slowly, as if time itself has chosen to rest upon its surface. Its waters shimmer beneath the gold of morning light, carrying whispers of silt, reed, and memory. Along its banks the world seems to breathe in rhythm, the rustle of palm leaves, the distant cry of a heron, the quiet murmur of water meeting stone. Every ripple carries a story older than speech, every reflection a dream of those who once lived beside it. The river winds past fields of wheat and flax, past fishermen casting nets into the current, past the statues that watch with patient eyes. It moves through the heart of Egypt, a land both vast and intimate, where sand and sky meet in endless conversation. The air is dry but not empty. It hums softly with life, the low buzz of insects, the whisper of linen garments brushing against skin, the faint ring of bronze jewelry as someone turns their head. Beyond the fields, beyond the palms, rise the walls of Alexandria, gleaming white beneath the sun. It is a city of order and beauty. Streets paved in stone, gardens blooming beside pools of clear water, columns that rise like frozen music. The scent of lotus drifts through courtyards where poets and scholars walk. Libraries filled with scrolls line the shaded halls, their silence broken only by the sound of parchment and thought. Knowledge lives here as a kind of light, quiet but enduring. At the center of it all stands the palace, vast and luminous, its walls painted in tones of ivory and ochre. The floors are cool marble, veined like the flow of the Nile itself. Drapes of linen move gently with the wind that slips in from the open courtyards. Columns stand tall as trees, their surfaces carved with stories of gods, kings, and stars. Every space within the palace hums with stillness, the kind that belongs not to emptiness but to harmony. Servants move soundlessly through the corridors, their steps cushioned by woven mats. They carry bowls of fruit, polished amphorae filled with wine, trays of figs, almonds, and honey. The scent of myrrh lingers in the air, mixing with the cool fragrance of the river breeze. Somewhere, a harp is playing, its notes falling like drops of water in an endless pool. In a room overlooking the gardens, Cleopatra sits beside an open window. The light touches her gently, gold upon her hair, warmth upon her shoulders. She wears linen so fine it seems made of air, its folds gathered with a clasp of hammered gold. Around her neck rests a collar of turquoise and lapis, the stones cool against her skin. Yet it is not the adornment that draws attention, but her stillness, a composure that holds both grace and thought. She is not the queen of stories filled with flame and storm. Here, in this quiet hour, she is a figure of calm intelligence, her eyes deep with the weight of reflection. Scrolls lie open before her, writings on medicine, astronomy, philosophy. She reads slowly, tracing lines with her finger, pausing to think, to listen, to breathe. Wisdom, to her, is not power, but understanding, a bridge between worlds. Outside, the day unfolds in soft rhythm. From the courtyard comes the laughter of attendants preparing for a banquet. Musicians tune their instruments, their strings singing faintly in the distance. The scent of roasted grain mingles with that of wine and fruit. Across the gardens, fountains whisper, scattering sunlight into drops that hang in the air like jewels. Everything moves with grace, unhurried, as though the world itself has learned the art of patience. When the banquet begins, the hall fills with a golden glow. Lamps burn with oil scented by resin and herbs. Their light ripples across the polished walls, across faces serene and curious. The guests are nobles, scholars, emissaries from distant lands. Their voices rise and fall in calm conversation, each word deliberate, each gesture courteous. The sound of music weaves between them, the slow rhythm of drums, the sigh of flute and harp. Cleopatra enters not with ceremony, but with presence. The room quiets, not from fear, but from reverence. She walks with the ease of someone entirely at home within herself. Her gaze is steady, her smile faint but real. When she speaks, her voice is low, shaped by thought and melody. She does not command. She draws attention by the gravity of calm. At her side stand advisors and friends, men and women who have traveled with her through years of rule. Together they share not commands but ideas, how the city may grow, how knowledge may spread, how peace may be preserved. The Queen listens as much as she speaks. Her leadership is a kind of music, part intellect, part empathy, each note balanced against the next. The feast continues under the open sky. The stars appear one by one, bright and unwavering. Torches flicker in the evening wind. The guests eat figs and bread drizzled with honey, drink from cups carved of alabaster, and laugh quietly beneath the soft hum of stringed instruments. The air feels alive with warmth, with serenity, with the gentle weight of history still unfolding. A poet recites verses dedicated to the Nile, its patience, its constancy, its gift of life. His voice drifts across the tables, low and clear, until it merges with the sound of the river itself, just beyond the palace walls. Cleopatra listens, her expression thoughtful, her fingers resting lightly against her cheek. The poem ends. She nods once, and the silence that follows is as deep as the night. Later, when the guests depart and the music fades, she remains near the balcony. The city sleeps below, its lamps glowing like a constellation mirrored upon the earth. The river gleams, silver beneath the moon, moving endlessly, softly, toward the sea. She leans on the marble railing, her breath slow, her gaze steady. In her eyes lies both knowledge and melancholy, the awareness that all beauty, even power, flows as surely as the water below. Behind her, servants extinguish the lamps one by one. The scent of oil lingers. The walls cool in the night air. Cleopatra stands alone now, framed by the open sky. Her thoughts drift between worlds, the present, the past, and the distant future that she knows she will never see. And yet, there is no fear, only quiet acceptance. Power, she understands, is not control but clarity, the ability to see beyond one's own life, to trust that the river continues even when one can no longer follow it. In the silence, a breeze moves through the room. The curtains sway like slow-moving water. The last candle trembles, its flame bending toward the open window. Outside, the desert breathes vast and eternal. Within, the Queen closes her eyes for a moment, her face serene. The moon drifts higher. Its light pools across the marble floor, turning the room to silver. In that stillness, Cleopatra's legacy feels less like memory and more like presence, not the echo of command, but the quiet certainty of wisdom that refuses to fade. The Nile flows on, carrying reflections of stars and stories alike. The city sleeps, the statues stand guard, and the palace dreams beneath the same eternal sky. Time moves forward, gentle as water, unstoppable as thought. And in the last golden evening of her reign, she leaves behind a mark deeper than stone, a whisper of light, a breath of knowledge, a calm that lingers forever in the heart of history. And in that final golden dusk, she left a mark that would forever rest within the memory of humankind. The life of women in the ancient world. In the quiet rhythm of the ancient world, women were the steady heart of life, unseen by history's loud pages, yet present in every corner of daily existence. Their world moved not through conquest or command, but through patience, care, and creation. Theirs was a kind of wisdom born from the earth itself, soft as the wind, constant as the tide. At dawn, before the first calls of the market or the clang of the forge, a woman would rise. The air still held the coolness of night, the faint scent of dew upon clay walls. In the dim light, she would stir the fire to life again, the embers glowing beneath her gentle breath. Smoke would curl upward, thin and silver, filling the space with warmth. Bread was mixed, water poured, grain ground slowly by hand. Each motion was unhurried, shaped by repetition, perfected by care. Outside, the world awoke in steps, a rooster's call, a door creaking open, the first sound of footsteps on the dirt path. Women moved quietly through these sounds, their presence woven into the morning itself. Some tended to small gardens near the home, hands pressing soil around roots, feeling the cool weight of the earth. Others drew water from wells, balancing the jars on their shoulders with graceful precision. The weight was never just burden, it was rhythm, a familiar pattern, an echo of generations before them. In towns and villages, women were weavers of both fabric and connection. Looms stood in open courtyards, wooden frames stretched with threads that shimmered faintly in the light. Fingers moved in patient sequence, over and under, rhythm and pause. The cloth grew slowly, its pattern unfolding like the memory of a song. These textiles clothed families, decorated homes, and traveled far through trade. Each thread a quiet message from one hand to another. The art of making was not limited to cloth. Women shaped clay into jars and bowls, their fingers smoothing the surface until it felt alive beneath their touch. They learned the secrets of herbs. Which leaf could soothe a wound, which root could ease a fever. They gathered flowers not only for beauty, but for meaning, to dry, to crush, to dye fabric, to scent the air. Their days were filled with creation, not grand monuments or battles, but the slow building of comfort, nourishment, and life. In the larger cities, women managed households that were small worlds of their own. They kept accounts, organized trade, oversaw servants or workers. Their knowledge was practical and deep. When to store grain, how to preserve fruit, how to stretch a meal to feed many. Yet beneath this, there was artistry. The placement of a lamp, the scent of oil, the way sunlight was allowed to pass through curtains of woven reeds. All were decisions guided by instinct, by a sense of harmony between human and space. Children learned from them the same quiet wisdom. Daughters watched their mothers' hands, how they braided hair, folded cloth, stirred pots without measuring. Sons listened to their mothers' stories, tales not of kings and battles, but of small victories, a garden that flourished after rain, a child's illness soothed, a winter survived. These stories carried the pulse of life itself, the knowledge that endurance and tenderness often build more lasting things than power ever could. Even in times of difficulty, women found rhythm in care. When sickness came, they moved through rooms with calm purpose, cooling fevered brows, whispering words of comfort. When seasons turned harsh, they mended clothes, shared food, watched over neighbors. Their strength was quiet but immense, like the roots of a tree that hold firm beneath the wind. In the evenings, when work was done and the air grew soft, women gathered together. They sat near doorways or beneath trees, spinning thread or shelling peas, their hands never idle, even in rest. Conversation flowed easily. Not loud, but steady, the sound of companionship worn smooth by time. They spoke of family, of seasons, of small hopes and worries. Sometimes they sang, low, rhythmic songs that matched the motion of their work. The melodies drifted into the night like gentle tides, weaving through the air with the scent of cooking fires. Art also lived in their gestures. The way they braided hair, decorated jars, embroidered fabric with colored thread. Each touch carried intention. Even the simplest item could be made beautiful when guided by patience. In this quiet artistry, they gave shape to the culture of their world, leaving behind traces that still whisper through the ruins, painted shards, carved combs, delicate beads. These were not luxuries, but expressions, ways of turning the everyday into something lasting. Some women were poets, musicians, healers. They learned to read the language of the sky, to follow the cycles of the moon and the rhythm of the river. Others became storytellers, preserving memories not in stone but in voice. Around the hearth, their words flowed like water, carrying laughter, sorrow, and wisdom from one generation to the next. Their voices softened the edges of time, turning memory into music. Through their patience, entire societies endured. Through their creativity, beauty found a home in even the simplest moments. Through their care, life was renewed again and again. Their contributions were rarely carved into history, yet they are everywhere, in the foundations of homes, in the patterns of textiles, in the language of comfort that has never been forgotten. To speak of women in the ancient world is to speak of continuity, of cycles that return and renew. They were the bridge between land and home, between survival and meaning. In them lived the wisdom of both stillness and change, of holding and releasing. They understood that to nurture is not only to give, but to balance, to live gently with the world and allow it, in turn, to live gently with them. When night came, they found quiet in the same small things that filled their days. The sound of a river flowing beyond the walls, the weight of a sleeping child's head upon the shoulder, the hush that followed the setting sun. These were the treasures no ruler could command, the kind that lived within moments, within breath. Time has carried their names away, but not their touch. It lingers in the smooth curve of an ancient pot, in the faded dye of a woven cloth, in the hush of dawn when someone somewhere still tends a fire, just as they once did. The world remembers them not through monuments, but through motion. The eternal rhythm of care, of patience, of hands that make and mend and give. And as the centuries drift like sand through the hourglass, their legacy remains, steady, quiet, shining beneath the surface of history like gold beneath the river's edge. Time begins to close now, and the ancient world slowly drifts away, dissolving like a dream that fades at dawn. The air grows still again, the light dims, soft and amber, as if the world itself is exhaling after a long, gentle journey. The sound that lingers is faint, a hum that feels older than memory. Somewhere, unseen gears begin to turn. The door of the time machine opens, not with a roar, but with a sigh, as though it too knows that every voyage must one day come home. You step inside. The air within is cool, familiar. The surface beneath your hand hums faintly, a reminder of all the places it has taken you. Beyond the glass, the centuries shimmer. Each one a breath, a color, a rhythm fading into the next. The machine begins to move, its motion unhurried, its path tracing backward through the corridors of time. Outside, the ancient world begins to blur. The sound of the blacksmith's hammer echoes faintly one last time, slow and steady, like the heartbeat of an age now passing. The glow of the forge fades to ember, sparks rise into the dark, drifting upward until they become stars. The smell of iron and smoke lingers for a moment longer, then dissolves into air. Farther back, the candlelight of old chambers flickers softly. You glimpse a figure in a wool cloak bending to light another flame, her shadow long across the stone floor. The wax melts slowly, the flame dances once, twice, then steadies. A quiet breath, a whisper, and the image drifts away like mist. Beyond the cities and castles, the river returns, wide, endless, serene. The Nile flows once more beneath the silver moon, its surface mirroring the sky. The statues stand silent upon its banks, eternal in their stillness. In the distance, a sail moves gently across the horizon, catching the faintest wind. The water carries reflections of temples, of palms, of a woman's calm face framed by golden light. Cleopatra, in her final evening, watches the river glide past. Her gaze is neither longing nor regretful, only knowing. Then, like the tide itself, she too fades into time's embrace. The motion continues, the colors of the world change. Sand gives way to stone, stone to soil, soil to forest. The smell of rain returns. Villages reappear, their roofs of straw and smoke curling lazily toward the dusk. You see once more the fields where farmers bend to their work, the soft rise of voices calling to one another. The rhythm of life repeats, sowing, reaping, resting. Every moment, every sound hums with the same quiet endurance. Music drifts faintly through the turning of ages. The notes of a lute carried on unseen wind, the beat of a drum far away, the laughter of dancers circling a fire. You remember the colors of their cloaks, the way they spun slowly in the golden light, their joy as soft and real as breath. Then the light dims, the song fades, and all that remains is the glow of embers beneath the stars. Time slows. The images become fragments now, a child's laugh, a page turning, the glint of sunlight on metal, a hand weaving cloth, steady and patient. The curve of pottery, smooth beneath the palm, the shimmer of a candle reflected in glass. Each piece holds a quiet kind of beauty, a reminder of how the simplest acts become the threads of history. The machine hums lower, the light outside the glass grows brighter, not the glow of torches or sunrise, but something clearer, nearer. The past folds gently upon itself, and the present begins to bloom once more. You can feel it, the pull of home, of now. The air shifts, the hum deepens, and then, like the closing of a book, the machine comes to rest. You open your eyes. The sound of the river is gone, replaced by the soft pulse of your own breath. The world outside is quiet, familiar, modern, alive. The time machine sits still, its surface warm beneath your hand. You can almost hear the echoes it carries within, the hammer on steel, the whisper of wind through old linen, the laughter beside ancient fires. For a moment you simply breathe. Gratitude rises, slow, weightless, complete. You have walked through centuries and returned with something unspoken, something that feels like peace. You understand now that the past is not lost. It sleeps within everything, in every sound, every scent, every quiet moment of the present. You step away from the machine. The air feels lighter, the silence softer. Outside, evening settles gently upon the world. The horizon glows faintly gold, then fades into blue. Time moves on, patient and endless, just as it always has. Every age, you realize, holds its own kind of beauty, not greater or lesser, simply different. Each moment, no matter how far apart, shares the same fragile wonder of being alive. And so, as the night deepens and the stars return, you close your eyes once more, letting the echoes fade, letting the centuries drift away. Every era has its own quiet beauty. Let that memory rest peacefully within your dreams.